Welcome to our spoiler discussion of Blade Runner 2049. So, for those of you who have watched our our other review of Blade Runner 2049, that was our non-spoiler. This is now going to be our spoiler discussion. We're going into more detail about it. Now, to pretty much go into more detail. This film deals with basically Ryan Gosling's character, as we find out, is actually a replicant.
Yeah, he's a replicant.
Which I was thrown off. I was like, wow, he's actually a replicant in this movie?
Yeah, and it seems like in this new verse, it starts out, it sounds like they're still killing off old replicants, but they're also recruiting replicants, a new form where they can control better.
Yeah, because in this future, well, it's also explored in the other shorts, because before going into the film, the other shorts that we mentioned earlier, they kind of bring up more of the backstory surrounding the future. Like, for example, there's the anime short called Blade Runner 2022, which goes into it's called Blackout, where basically all of the old replicants were getting killed off, and it deals with like the uprise of the new future.
And in the new movie, they do keep talking about the blackouts, but you don't get to see it until you watch.
So you watch the anime.
The anime, and then they came out with one where Batista. I can't say Batista. I can only call him Batista. Batista's character, where kind of he's in the middle of the. He's at the very beginning of the new one, but that's pretty much it. They do a short where it shows him going around the city. Kind of looks like the first Blade Runner, where you're going through and you got all these like weird looking motherfuckers like off of Mario type things. And they're sitting there, he's trying to pawn shit to get money, and then he there's this girl he always likes to talk to, the mother, and that one's more action because it shows him beating the shit out of everybody and fighting. Yeah. And you can tell that, oh fuck, he's a replicant. And then that short kind of ends, and then they do Jared Leto one where he's being interrogated, and he gives him his history, and he talks about his history of why he became the man he did. This is one of these new trends where they're now doing with new films where they release these shorts before the movie actually comes out, and that short will not be in the film. But we start off where Ryan Gosling's character is at the... It is like cinematography in this part is pretty cool.
It's like in the rain, kind of.
Well, it's the one where it was in a farm,
like kind of grayish looking.
It was
kind
all
of like
white.
Man of Steel's kind of cinematography.
Yeah, like it looked like it was all snow at first, but then it was actually satellites or some shit. And then he gets down there, and that's where like he's Batista is doing the farming like maggots or some shit.
Yeah, it's maggots.
Yeah, then that's where he's trying to take him in for. Being a replicant.
Yeah, because they're hunting down the ones that were old, the replicants that weren't, basically like in the first film where Deckard had to go after the replicants that weren't allowed to be on Earth or whatever. Yeah. That's what Gosling's doing too, and so he's trying to take him in, but then Batista, refuses, so they have this big fight that's pretty fucking like vicious because he's like slamming him across walls and shit.
Man, they were sitting here, he's like slamming against that wall, and it was like a regular wall, but inside it was like fucking like cement and shit. Yeah. He go boom, and they fucking just blast right through that damn thing and all that stuff. And it just shocked me because I thought he was gonna be big in the movie because I seen him get promoted in the trailers a lot, and he actually gets fucking shot and killed.
I was like, wow, they actually killed him off that quick.
Yeah.
But then as it goes along, we also discovered that Gosling is in the same city where his boss, played by Robin Wright, they discover that there's like this weird image that shows up before he goes to the police station. He's talking to her on this communicator in his car, and he discovers that there's something underneath that tree that they find. It's a bag of bones, or it's a box of bones, basically.
But box of bones, and it has like a bunch of like stuff that they've been looking for or some shit like that.
It's like old replicants that are deceased.
Yeah, deceased, but they left behind treasures or some shit, and they go into investigating that. Yeah,
and plus, and they also discover that there's something that has to do with an old case that's brought up because they discover that in the bones, I believe, they find out that it's from an old replicant from 30 years ago.
Yep.
And they discover that it's actually a child.
Yep.
And so the whole plot of the movie is basically Gosling having to find out where this child's at, and then along the way, he's also discovering some other things too about like how you know, in the when he goes back to his apartment, there's also this subplot that involves with him and his girlfriend, who's like this hologram.
Yeah,
kind of
hologram.
girl. Her name is Joy, Joi.
Yeah.
But the ironic thing is that he's not really happy himself, but she's supposed to bring him joy.
Yeah, and she's trying to do it, but she's also a hologram, so when it comes to sexual touching and stuff like that, she can't really do.
Yeah.
So.
But I actually really enjoyed her character.
I did too.
I actually thought,
cool.
you know, it was interesting how they brought into that vibe of this, because we also see later in the film that there's this woman that he comes across on the street that's, you know, you think she's actually a hooker.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
This film goes through the city, and it kind of reminded me of Fifth Element, the way they're dressed, especially that girl you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he goes, looks like a brothel, I guess, in that time. And he's sitting there, you know, he's a Blade Runner, so he's going around doing his own thing, sitting around talking to the city, and then I guess I forgot which girl.
It was told him.
Told him to follow him and put the thing in his wallet thing. You remember?
Or no, it was that one with the sunglasses.
Yeah.
That one hooded kind of girl that goes up to the prostitutes.
Yeah, and said, "I need you to do something for me. Follow him, get to know him for me and stuff." And there's a little tracking device.
Yeah, and so basically that girl that goes up to him, who's the redhead. Well, later in the film, we discover that he wants to use her as basically a simulator for sex, basically, because his girlfriend is a hologram. He wants to use her as like an actual
where she kind of goes in her body, and then like he kind of sees her face, and then like wow, he's fucking this other girl and stuff, but also the movie's has a lot to do with a lot of explorations. It's not like we're in chronological order right now. There's like big gaps where you get a lot, because this film is more about capturing atmosphere. So you get a lot of him going to all these different worlds. Like
which I found very fascinating, because that's what. Now I didn't bring this up in the non-spoiler, but I love how the story is doing its own thing, because it's not just rehashing the first one where Deckard is just going after the replicants to kill them.
We see a lot of films that do that. They bring back an 80s or a 70s flick, and they actually just do the
carbon copy the same story.
Story again, but this one actually didn't do it, which I give praise on.
Yeah, so that's why I feel like this can also stand on its own, because the only time that they really bring up events from the first one is when it has to do with him looking for Deckard. And the reason why he's looking for Deckard is because they discover that later in the film that he goes to this orphanage, and he discovers something about his past and all that.
Where he used to be a kid.
Where he used to be the kid. Because basically Gosling doesn't have, like, he's having implanted memories, kind of like Rachel from the first one, where he's remembering things, like, very vividly when he was a child, and he had something to do with this this horse, or like this black horse toy that he had. Yeah,
he remembers his past, but it also implants their own, like you said, they implant their own memories and they put it in there. And so it's like a mixture of his past and what that's going on that never happened in his life. So.
Which I found really interesting, because that's how the first one was too, and how basically in the first film, the final cut version, or at least the director's cut, Deckard throughout that film was having like images of this horse, this unicorn kind of running around.
Yeah.
That's basically implying that he has memories himself, and that supposedly he's a replicant. Yeah. Now, this topic has been debated over the years whether or not that's true. This film doesn't really explore. It does explore that, but it's never really answered correctly if they do, if they indicate it.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we bring up the whole horse thing is because Gosling also has images of a horse, but it's a black horse instead of the white one.
And then when he was at that orphanage, he ran into Morgan from Walking Dead.
Yeah, which I was like, wow, it's...
Man, it's pretty cool that show, that Walking Dead, is getting it's been big, that it actually spawns actors and actresses to go in big roles.
Yeah, that's
I was actually glad to see what he was in it for what he got.
Yeah.
Kind of remind me of he was playing the same character still.
I know.
Because he's still dressed like that, and it's back in
the hood.
It's still kind of like post-apocalyptic. So.
Well, and not just that, but he's also using his same accent. Because in real life, he's actually British.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I also enjoyed too was how this film, the way the technology has advanced, we get to see other things, including on how they can, basically the replicants, because in the first film, they had to use like this thing where they examined their eye. Well, now they made it easier to where they have numbers that are implanted under their eye that they can discover if they're replicants.
So, so they don't have to, have to do this big investigation to see if you are. It's like they got a thing that will tell you right away who you are. So.
Yeah, and then what's also fascinating is this film has interesting, interesting things going on between, like you were saying, the whole past and reality parts that come into play throughout. Because not only we're getting this from Gosling's character, but there's also a character that comes across later that's like this. It's in that orphanage I was telling you, where he goes in there and. It's this girl who's behind glass, and she can't leave because she has some kind of disease.
Well, she has something that happened, and we'll get to that at the end, where like her immune system cannot live outside this world. So it's like this computer world where she can live in the woods, mountains. She can kind of make it her own, and she can live in that world. But anyways, her job in this film is she creates memories for replicas. Which
I found very interesting. Yeah. That actually, I feel, expands greatly upon the first film. Because the first film did that, where you're kind of interpreting what's, like, how they get dreams and all that. This one, they actually explore more of that, which I found really fascinating. Yeah. And so, because there's actually a part where she's in the little, behind the glass, and she's making, like, birthday cake. Mm-hmm. Like, she's actually creating implants, dreams, or past memories where these kids are like surrounding her and stuff, and then she's blowing out candles. Like she's actually creating it with this little device that she has.
Yeah, she does it for replicas. But here's the part where Ryan Gosling gets arrested because they found out he's discovering more than what his mind was set on.
Because he's led to believe that he's actually the child.
Of Deckard and Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so whenever they felt like once he starts getting that territory, they put out a warrant for his arrest. They arrest him, and then that's where he's being interrogated by the Jenny. I can't.
Robin Wright.
Yeah, and she's pretty much said she can't save him now. Like he's going to be being hunted because he went over his boundaries, what he was supposed to be doing, and that generally carries a death sentence for replicants if they end up going to that level.
Yeah, and then along the way too, after this happens, we didn't bring this up, but there's actually this. Well, we did this in the other review. There's this girl that works for Jared Leto's character for the corporation, and her job is to basically. Well, what she's trying to do is to go after Gosling from having to learn more about the replicants and all that, and trying to stop him from causing all this. Yeah. And I gotta tell you, that girl was pretty vicious.
Yeah, she was pretty vicious. She looked familiar.
She kind of, this is not the same actress, but she kind of looked like that girl off NCIS.
Okay, I thought she, the look-wise.
The look-wise, with the whole, black hair, and her eyes kind of look familiar.
Yeah. I did say she looked like this one girl from this one movie, but my girlfriend corrected me and said, no, it's not her, so I said, okay. But she looked familiar. But anyways, yeah, she pretty much is also after Ryan Gosling, and she goes to the police department where he works at, where she runs into
Robin
Wright, and interrogates her to ask her where the fuck he's at.
Yeah, and then that's when we basically get this really brutal death scene where she stabs her, but then for like a second it cuts away to where it's outside in the rain and all that, and it gives it like this very disturbing kind of
impact. God, the way the camera work in this film, it does this shit on purpose to make the visual atmosphere even stronger. Yeah. Like it shows us and I felt like it was raining in our theaters. That's how good it was. Because we seen it in 3D, so the 3D was good on this part. But it felt like the atmosphere, it felt like we were in rain.
Yeah, it was.
Because it wasn't playing no score, just you can hear the raindrops.
You hear the rain, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because throughout this film, now keep in mind, Jared Leto was only in this film for about 2 scenes, but I did feel like his character did serve quite a purpose, because his whole goal in this movie is to create millions of replicants that are advanced human beings, and he also has this thing where if the replicant can't, he doesn't want the replicants to have childs, so he actually cuts one of them after one's born, basically.
And that's another reason why they think that the girl and Jared Leto are after Ryan Gosling, is when he gets that territory, they see that he might be a child replicant. Yeah. So they're like, oh, he's got to die.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So that was the whole point of her going after him.
Yeah.
And then, also, to basically go into a little bit more detail, too, we also discovered that there's something that involves with Deckard, because when we finally get to the third act,
which is 2 hours and 5 minutes.
2 hours and 5 minutes, we finally get introduced to Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting, because this place that he's living at is so deserted and stuff that it looks really like something out of Mad Max.
Yeah, Mad Max. It's orange, deserty looking, but it's a city that looks like it's been through a nuclear war. Yeah. And the city has got outstanding buildings, got sand blown everywhere, but you could tell it's post-apocalyptic in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So.
But also, when we discover who he is, when we finally see Harrison Ford, we discover, he is very skeptical because he thinks that Gosling is trying to kill him. So they have this really epic fight where he's just beating the shit out of Gosling, shooting at him and everything.
Yeah, fuck it. Getting shot and explosions, and he has all the booby trapped and everything. And then he had that funny scene with the Elvis Presley hologram,
and then the Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting, what I found really great about Deckard in this film is that he's been through hell, like over the
he's playing survivalist.
Because it's discovered now that Deckard, when he at the end of the first film, when he and Rachel left. Went on her way. Basically, it was he became a wanted man, and so he wanted to live a peaceful life, and he had no choice but to have Rachel dropped off where that farm place was at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she was there, she ended up dying, and then the replicant child was still born. Now, the thing that was shocking was that she actually had two children. One died, one was actually. Did the other child die, or was it just the girl that lived?
If
I remember correctly, only the girl lived, because I think the boy died.
Yeah, it was a boy-girl twin. We'll get to the part who it really was. You're led to believe that it's Ryan Gosling. He's the one, but it ends up finding out that the boy actually, it ain't him, because the boy actually died. The girl is out there. There's a twin.
Yeah.
And she lived.
Yeah, and you can see how the damage surrounding Harrison Ford because of all the thing that he didn't want to go through with his child, trying to be around his child, because he was basically scared that if he was around his child that they would eventually find him.
Oh, and by the way, we've also left out a couple things. Joy, he had to put her into his little pin thing because he's now being hunted and he can't ever go back home, so he took her with her. But if this pin breaks, he'll never see her again. She'll die completely.
Yeah.
Well, you remember the transmitter I said earlier that chick put in his thing? That tracked him down, and they found him and Harrison Ford, Deckard. It led him to Deckard. Yeah, because
when the girl from working for Jared Leto finds him, they take Deckard in to basically
beat the shit out of him in the fight scenes. And
I gotta tell you, Harrison Ford is still in good shape, because he was he was taking out a couple guys in that one scene.
Yeah, but this is where Ryan Gosling gets fucked up.
Yeah, he gets his ass handed to him.
Big time, yeah.
Yeah.
He gets knocked out, and then that bitch that works for Jared Leto, she kills Joy by squishing that fucking thing.
Yeah, that was messed up.
And enjoys it. He said his last goodbyes, and then she disappeared, and she's gone.
Yeah, and then when we see the then while this is going on, the same time that when Ryan Gosling is knocked out, we discover that this is actually pretty interesting too. Deckard is taken to Jared Leto's corporation, which kind of reminded me of that temple off of GoldenEye, the video game of GoldenEye. It's like that temple part, because the way that the building he's in is kind of looks like an old temple, basically. Yeah. But anyway, basically, Jared Leto comes before him by saying that if he wants to really, have his old life back, he actually recreated a model of Rachel.
Yeah,
and which they actually got the same actress to play in a CGI format. Which I thought was pretty good. Yeah. Because that actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, because Jared Leto's kind of interrogating him and stuff. Yeah, and wants him to hey, join us or some shit like that. Yeah.
But then Deckard's like, no, because she had green eyes, and so they actually end up killing the replicant, and he ends up getting taken to
custody.
To custody, while at the same time Ryan Gosling's knocked out, and that girl we mentioned earlier, that redhead, she's actually part of this underground replicant underground. What's it called?
It's like a corporate. It's like a underground Freedom fighters, and we're hinted that they're preparing for war.
Yeah,
they're going to actually. They're tired of being killed off or slaves, so now it's becoming possibly in the future if. Hopefully the budget doesn't interfere.
Does.
We're led to believe that there's going to be more Blade Runner movies coming out where it's going to lead into an all-out war.
Yeah, which I would find very...
And they're trying to recruit Ryan Gosling. They're saying, help us.
Yeah, and we get this really cool plot twist where it shows that the girl that we thought was actually dead from earlier in the film, the child, was actually alive.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually, we'll get to it later, but anyway... It's up to, they actually want him to kill Deckard because they feel like he's also part of the problem too, because he actually switched the whole it was established that he switched the birth records, and so the child died, the boy died, but the girl lived. Mm-hmm. So now it's discovered that there's actually someone else besides Gosling who's the child.
Yeah.
And then we get to the final climax, which involves basically
on a
Deckard.
Thing.
Yeah, it's on like this. They're like going through in the sky, and it's like this really beautiful atmospheric rain that's falling down and all that.
Yeah, and it's like you kind of hit it's like lake or ocean in the bottom. Yeah.
And so Deckard is taken into custody by Jared Leto's people, and then Ryan Gosling catches up with him and takes them down, takes their ships down, and while they're going down, they go across this water, and Deckard is tied up, and him and the girl inside are having to. You know, the ship is basically getting full of water, outside.
Yeah. Well, it's because Ryan Gosling shot through that spaceship, the driver.
Yeah.
And then fucking killed the driver, and he crashed into that water.
Yeah.
And then that's where he goes in there and he fights that girl, Jared Leto's hench lady.
Yeah.
And they get
Luv, Love, that's her name.
Yeah, and they end up getting a fucking big old fight, man, to the end.
And he gets pretty damaged too. Ryan Gosling gets stabbed. I think he gets shot too
on his
side,
man.
Yeah, and she does like some really cool martial arts moves too on him.
Yeah.
And basically it ends with he drowns her in the water while Deckard is still trying to get air. And then he frees him, and then basically in order to prevent them from finding him, he fakes his death by saying that he died in the water.
Yeah.
And so the final ending involves them going back to the orphanage, and he tells Deckard that this is where your daughter's at. So the daughter is actually the girl from the orphanage that we were talking about, who can make the dreams, or the implanted memories.
Memories, because her immune system was altered because she's half replicant, half human.
Yeah, which I found. See,
so that answers right
there that Deckard can't be a replicant because, first of all, if he was a replicant, how does he age? You can't tell me that there's advanced models like Terminator Genesis where they age.
Not especially during his times.
Yeah.
When he's supposedly from the beginning of it all. So he wouldn't be...
There's no way. Yeah. And not to mention, if he was replicant, replicants can't have or can't have children.
And explain to me why he doesn't talk like one ever, while the other ones have that accent where you kind of can tell.
Yeah, because plus he feels more pain too.
Yeah, I know that, and it just beats the purpose because the story explains about a human having sex with a replicant. And having a baby.
Now, there are other elements that you could say he could be replicant because you could say that... Again, this is something that's debated. That's why, depending on which version you watch of the first Blade Runner, it depends on how you watch the film.
Yeah.
So it's really up to the audience to decide if he is or not. But I firmly believe he is not a replicant.
I don't think he is either. So.
But anyway, yeah.
And it shows him, you think he's going to say something because he's like, he gets to see his daughter for the first time, and then it ends suddenly.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I also feel like he's not a replicant, too, is that in the first film, when it has that whole unicorn sequence, you could get the idea that humans share the same type of dreams that replicants do. So, it's not really established that he's a replicant himself, but he just happens to share similar dreams that replicants have. Yep. So, I'm convinced that he's human. Yeah. But anyway, we get that final shot where he sees his girl for the first time, and puts his hand on there, and then we also have the shot where Ryan Gosling, who's been wounded, he just falls down on the steps, and it's kind of ambiguous whether or not he dies or lives because he's kind of wounded. Yeah. So, again, that's one of those endings that I think really works too because you're kind of really pitching your head. Okay, is he living? Or is he going to die?
Okay. So that's pretty much the story. We explained our pros in this film, like the cinematography was probably the best cinematography in fucking years. The visual effects was fucking amazing.
Little to no CGI,
Oh my god, it was so goddamn beautiful. And 3D just made it even better, even though it doesn't show much 3D, but it captures the atmosphere. The movie is strong on atmosphere. It wants you to visually see it.
Yes.
And tell a story that way. So this movie's visuals was out of this world. The performance from Ryan Gosling and everybody was phenomenal on
Absolutely.
no level. God,
the writing, the way that it's capturing the dreams and reality is so great too. And even Harrison Ford said this is probably the best screenplay he ever read too.
Yeah, he loved it, and
and I mean, yeah, there are some things that are very unanswered necessarily, like the whole resistance going after the corporation and all that, but. I guess from the way that it's kind of the way that the filmmakers were going for is that some things are kind of left unanswered, so to speak. Yeah. So I think in the future, what we're going to see probably like how the first film did, when it becomes a lot more like a cult following with a lot of people, there are some movies that probably don't need to be answered because you kind of just see as it is. Yeah. Now, it would be cool if we see sequels to this, because I really do want to see more of these movies.
Yeah, I do too. Because I wonder what they could do with the whole all-out war thing.
That would be cool. Yeah. I mean, if they don't, then cool. I mean, at least we got this ambiguous type of film. Yeah. But if they really do it, though, that'll add just even more layers to it. Yeah. So I do hope everyone gets a chance to go see this in theaters.
It is worth it.
It is definitely worth it.
And I'll tell you right now, this is one of those films I think you need to see in theaters because the score and the cinematography, the visuals, just it puts it all together. And I think it's one of those once in a lifetime chances you need to see in theaters. It just probably wouldn't work as good on TV than it would if you.
Well,
I mean, it's going to be. I'm not saying nothing about TV. I just think that. Use this experience in theaters because it is worth it.
Well,
for visual.
And notice that, but you also have to look at this film as not your typical sci-fi film because it's not just a straight up action adventure. It's very ambitious. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of risks, unlike some other Hollywood films we've had recently, and it puts a lot of energy into its writing as well. So I do highly, highly enjoy this, and with that. Like we were discussing in our last review.
What would you say are your cons?
If I had any cons...
now I can finally get into my bad
Okay, so if I had any cons, it would just be that we... I mean, really, it's just very little minimal.
It's not cons, it's questions.
It's questions.
It's question what direction this movie's going
It's the question involving how, where else would Wallace, the Jared Leto character, go?
Yeah. And
also the stuff involving... I'm trying to think.
Like Jared Leto, I get what they went with in the movie, but I wanted to see more of them. Yes, they do have that short.
That's what I was thinking.
And that short does kind of answer. It doesn't really answer still who created him. Is he a replicate? Is he made by the main bad guy from the first one, and he was hidden until something bad happened? He needed to release another. You don't know that. This guy, who is he? And I think they kind of left that out. I'd like to see more of who he is. I also, and this is one of those rare films where he is considered the villain, but he only comes in twice in this movie, and he doesn't have a closure either.
Yeah. Now
he's using that girl.
That's what I was saying.
Fighting for
now here's another thing too. I did notice this kind of goes with the first one as well. Yeah. As much as I love the way that the replicants have their strength that can take down humans and stuff, it would have been cool to at least see more of what they could do necessarily. Yeah. I like what they do with their strength and everything. I just felt like they could have maybe done a little more.
This maybe one really underuses it compared to the first one. The first one it showed a lot of ass whooping and a lot of boom 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 and shit like that. This one they don't show that. They kind of left that for your short stories, and this is more of. Just a story drama than it is an action.
Well, I get what that's what I'm saying, but it would have been also cool to see more of the different replicants that Leto creates. That maybe we could see some more advanced ones coming.
Yeah, I know, like see different levels.
Yeah,
because we are now so far ahead of time. I think that they should be able to do that, create that. And I think Leto would be really cool if it would have showed us what he just stated, could have done more.
Maybe make some advanced soldiers or something like that. It would have been interesting.
If they do a all-out war one and Jared, he would have to come back. We need a closer with them. I'd like to see where he creates mean replicants that are far advanced.
Yeah,
kind of like a Terminator type thing, but where they all are different. Some can do certain this and that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah,
if they do get to that. We don't know yet because people are just not going to see the movie.
I know.
It's bombing right now.
It would also... I actually think that they could have probably... I'm trying to think. it would have been more. It would have been cool to at least see kind of more into like fill in some more gaps at least with Deckard. Like, okay, that dog that he has. I kind of wonder like. Just little things like, you know, kind of wonder where that dog came from and everything.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have used the dog more. Because he only uses him in that one scene, but I was like, man, they could have brought that dog along with the ride.
Yeah, and see, that dog could have probably saved the day. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's like little things that they could probably explore
It's
more
not-
with, but it's
yeah.
not really a flaw. It's just something I kind of would have enjoyed more with.
They could have
you know?
added more, not hate.
Yeah, but overall though, I still highly love this film.
I love
and
it too.
I'm definitely going to own this on Blu-ray. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get all the versions. Well, if they come with all of them, I'm going to watch all the versions that they have of the first Blade Runner, and then try to compare them and everything, and see how different they kind of hold up with the other movies.
This is off topic. Before we give our score for this film, who do you thought was a better villain, the dude from the first one or this one?
Well, they had more screen time with the first one.
Yeah, because the first one, it's more like your standard structure where the villain does some bad shit. You're after the villain.
Well, he actually has.
You clearly see the villain, and it gives you a kind of an ending. And this one, the villain itself is not really doing anything. You could feel his presence, but he's actually having other people do things.
Yeah, which I buy. I buy the whole presence part. It's just Rutger Hauer. I said this in my written review. Rutger Hauer's Roy Batty in the first one.
Yeah.
I felt like he should have deserved an Oscar nomination because
he was fun.
Not only was he a great performance, but that his character, you get his motivation too. Because basically in the first film, the replicants are dying. They actually have no choice but to do whatever it takes to survive.
Yeah.
You know, and in the first one, you actually got a lot more into what his character was about.
I actually ended up liking him a lot too. He was cool.
I know, especially
badass,
his speech at the end of the first one, where he's talking about the rain. That's like very cold and very memorable.
Yeah.
So I did like Rutger Hauer more in the first one, but that's not to say Leo did a bad job. I'm just saying there was more to the characters in the first movie.
Yeah.
But overall, I still highly enjoy the film, and I really hope everyone gets a chance to see this, especially in 3D if you get a chance.
I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. So, for those of you who have also seen Blade Runner 2049 and the first one, let us know in the comments of what you thought about it. And if you like what you see here, you can check out some of our other reviews here on our channel. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.